Hello, Patriots. It's the Cockney Pollster here, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you're all well. It's been a while, I know, and I'm still full of this damn cold, so do bear with me. Now, I recently rediscovered a reply from several years ago, which I had sent to a young blogger. The chap had been picking my brains and wanted to explore what was going on in the bigger picture, so to speak. Rereading the exchange between the two of us, and with a fresh perspective, and taking into account the current geopolitical turmoil, the content seems more relevant now than it actually did back in 2017. So I thought I would share my response with you, and I do hope that it resonates. But I will apologise in advance if my reply to the blogger challenges your understanding of the order of things, because this video might dash certain hopes. Well, for some, that is. And I don't write anecdotally either, and I only comment on that which I've witnessed firsthand. Okay then, here is my reply to the blogger. Thank you for your kind words, for it is most gratifying that my insight into events is being appreciated by some at least. First off, you asked me about the realities of our general elections and whether they are truly democratic. Clearly, they are not. And if I can use the analogy of a conjurer's three-card trick, whereby, whether you choose a red, blue, or yellow card, they all belong to the conjurer. Who is the conjurer? Well, I'll reveal that later. You would never believe the data which is kept on everyone, and for that matter, where they are kept. And get ready for mankind's next state of evolution. Prepare each other, for this is what we should all be focusing our minds on before it's too late. There's much narrative being written now about transhumanism and who's behind it. It's creeping up, and you need to keep an eye out for it. And yet, we have allowed ourselves to be utterly manipulated and conditioned by fear, tech, drugs, alcohol, digital social media platforms, debt enslavement, political and religious ideologies, which in turn is all part of the apparatus of state's propaganda machine. I must also bust some of the myths surrounding the so-called elites. Many who are described as such simply are not. The political elite are often understood to be the establishment. They are not. Players like Soros, Musk, Gates, President Xi, Putin, Biden, Blair, and Trump even are easy targets, and yet in reality they are way down the pecking order. Even the likes of the Rothschilds. So imagine, if you will, a pyramid of control, and it is only those tiny few making up a pernicious cabal which occupies the pinnacle of such a pyramid, who control everything. They have never revealed themselves, or have they? The cabal is hiding in plain sight, and you would never have guessed who and what they are. To put it into perspective, if you measured up a scale of 1 to 10, being one elevation of that pyramid, the aforementioned names would barely make numbers 5 or 6. Put simply, if you know the name of the so-called elite individual, then he or she isn't one. It is often quoted that 1% controls the other 99%. Another myth, I'm afraid, for in reality, it's more like 0.0001%, which controls the rest of the global population. So let's answer your question about what motivates these parasites. They have only one modus operandi, which is control, control, control. Consequently, such a small number controlling more than 8 billion souls takes some doing. So they have devised a simple, yet devastatingly effective strategy where the masses control themselves through fear. And hell, does it work. Even when I was reading your reply earlier, I felt quite downcast, really, for here I was, reading the heartfelt words of a highly intelligent mind, but even you had clearly fallen for the same conjurer's card trick. Much of your passion was being undermined by one emotion, again, fear. Understandable to a degree, for you have only been privy and aware of the atrocities that you are allowed to perceive, which are going on all around you. Let me be clear. The cabal is utterly corrupt, amoral, and they possess superintelligent psychopathic minds. Again, control is the only game in town as far as they are concerned, and acquiring wealth, political power in the recognised sense is inconsequential to them because they already hold all the cards, where they use the various other so-called elites to do their executive bidding for them. Be under no illusion, even the world leaders are completely expendable, no matter who they are. History tells us that whenever the cabal needs to create revolutionary forces to upend particular dynasties, it is done with brutal haste. Just look at Saddam and Gaddafi, or the Romanovs, for example, before them. One minute they believe themselves to be an elite and deluded into thinking they are approaching the pinnacle, and the next, they're toppled. Take it from me, Putin is looking over his shoulder right now, and despite his brave, surgery-ravaged face, he never sleeps at night. And just as they depose leaders once their usefulness is over, the cabal uses the same fear approach with international structures, trade groups, hedge fund leaders, corporate entities, etc. And now that the Silicon Valley tech giants have become more useful than ever to the cabal, they are bringing its entire paradigm and structure under its control. This is moving their game onto a whole new level, with 6G enabled AI, bots, and digital governance, which means the masses, especially the impressionable young minds, who are nearly permanently plugged into their network via smartphone addiction, and they are unwittingly walking into a prison where they cannot see the bars. Take it from me, it's very nearly game over, and the cabal can move the pawns around the board at will. In a way, the fear is justified, and for the avoidance of doubt, do not try to attach any religion or creed to the cabal, even if they claim to be, for the convenience and their perception. All religions have been allowed to develop as a means of providing the cabal with yet more control, because they know that dogma is so easy to manipulate by creating yet greater conflict. You can study the ancient scriptures, no matter what the religion, as much as you like, for it is the cabal and their predecessors who originally scribed, manipulated, and mistranslated them over many millennia. Just as they now see the opportunity to dismantle the structures of the West, yes, even the EU is imploding, just as the USA and UK are too. They have always used religion to bring the masses into conflict, and while they are being preoccupied, the cabal goes about its business unhindered. It goes back to literally before the time of the pharaohs, where their forebears of the cabal used the same tactics to keep creating new belief systems to usurp the previous deity and denounce it as heretical. Therefore, the new order is only ever the true pathway to God and enlightenment. Laughable, really, when you consider that the word heresy simply means choice. Even Hebrew scriptures are only a reworking of the much older Sumerian and Mesopotamian texts. Hebrew was replaced by Greek, then Latin, and finally English. You get the idea, and it was not been done for ease of translation either. Quite the opposite indeed, where each new, shall we say, understanding is brought into conflict with the old way of thinking. Just as you are witnessing right now, where you're seeing the cult of woke being used to replace critical thinkers by another dogmatic creed. It works every time. The displacement of the Muslims and the third world peoples is their intended strategy in order to eventually impose a uniculture on mankind, which can again be easily more controlled. The West will fight back at first because it is falsely comforted by its apparent superior weaponry, but the sheer weight of expendable numbers will eventually overcome our resistance. which is also why sperm counts in the West are plummeting. That's not happening elsewhere. And Muslims are multiplying by literally millions, month on month, year on year, which leads us onto the emotive subject of birth control. This is an interesting one, because yet again the masses have been hoodwinked into getting all hung up on the religious and moral aspects of the debate, which is another intended red herring and a distraction from what's really going on. The real reason abortion and birth control was frowned upon and discouraged was to ensure that the numbers on either side of the East v West divide were kept fairly even and creating a proxy crusade which is still going on to this day. All the good versus evil narrative is a great one to manipulate young and impressionable minds, and the cabal has now brought into the mix culture wars, climate activism, and the trans debate. That's it. Keep the fixated humans distracted with yet more conflict. So it's purely a numbers game to ensure that your troop numbers are maintained. But I hear you ask, won't that give Islam a significant advantage over the Christian West because they are outnumbering us with higher birth rates? For a period it might do, but just as the cabal always upend structures, they will do so again with Islam if it suits their end game. Indeed, as they have done so many times before, such as the historical period when large areas of Spain was actually Islamic, and following the disintegration of the Caliphate, Muslim control of southern Spain and Portugal collapsed. Just think how history could have been so different if that had not happened. The cabal uses third parties to sell arms to both sides, and to be fair, millions of Muslims are also being manipulated into believing that their belief system must prevail. So it's not solely about bringing down the West, for many Muslims believe they are the ones being destroyed by the West. The parasite's blame game is serving them well, through yet more fear, as it has done for so many millennia. The cabal will simply keep the conflicts going until one side outnumbers the other, and that will be the culture which will be adopted throughout the globe and which will serve their bidding. Please don't fall for the Q narrative either. The cabal are just brilliant at appearing as if they are the wise oracle of all things. Remember, they control all the breakout points of the internet used by the military, secret services, Interpol, etc., which interfaces with their shadow internet, which was created long before the conventional internet, and by the way, not to be confused with the dark web. They also created the latter as a means to exploit human weakness because they know that humans are just suckers for wanting what they are otherwise denied. And now millions of minds are corrupted forever by dark web access and through the addiction to its disgusting and depraved platforms. But look deeper down the rabbit hole. I would like to use the iconic phrase follow the money, but that will only bring you up short. For 99% of the real wealth is sitting in Liechtenstein foundations and are virtually impregnable. Just to illustrate, when the media mogul Robert Maxwell's empire collapsed following his death, even Interpol hit a brick wall as all of his arrangements were administered by secretive banking foundations in Vaduz. So you must research the Order of St. John. They have permanent observer status as at the UN and are a chivalric order which dates back to before even the Knights Templars. Use your discernment though, because there are many rogue orders of the OSJ and much false narrative is written about them by those false prophets claiming to be in the know. It's not the official line, but they control much of the world's bullion. Finally, forget all the so-called digital and cryptocurrencies. Just one global cyber attack and a whole lot will disappear, so good luck with that one. For gold is the only divine element and always will be. Global debt is now over $300 trillion, and that doesn't include the off-balance sheet debt, which is at least that amount again. The inevitable total collapse of the global monetary system is happening, and it's happening now, which is why the central banks are buying up more gold in preparation for the implosion than at any time in history. The next black swan event will make the 2008 great financial crash look like a walk in the park. So there you have it, patriots, and if you can like, share, subscribe and press the notification bell, I'll be very much appreciative. I mean this, please look out for each other, for I truly believe that we are witnessing a battle for the very survival of our nation. Thank you for joining me today.